I've heard a rumor that you were trapped somewhere in a submarine in the Atlantic Ocean, and you may never resurface.
How did you know? Oh my God, how did that get out already? That's crazy. You also didn't realize it was a Russian nuclear sub either. So, yeah, if I can ever get out of Moby Dick's mouth, then I think I'll be okay. But anyway, we went on vacation in the Caribbean, and literally 5 days after we were there, the borders closed down. So what we ended up doing is we actually ended up having to do a lot of hopping around. We had to charter boats to try to get, because actually where we were, the island that we were on got closed down for all business. And then most of the islands closed their borders. So we basically had to get to an island very quickly where we could safe harbor until the borders reopened, which ended up being 5 months. So we ended up having to rent, B&Bs, Airbnbs. And, we had friends who luckily were in the area that would help us out from time to time. So we were getting to stay places, on people's living room floors or, in the back of somebody's house or whatever it took basically to survive during this time. It was very, very scary. We both caught COVID during that time. We were both quarantined. We didn't really want to report it to the press or to anybody else because at that time we didn't know what was going to happen. And, we didn't know if it meant we were going to die, but we certainly didn't want to alarm anyone. So it was really scary. And actually the way that we found out that we even had it, because there were no tests where we were. So the only way that we could actually find out that it was real was when we were watching a news report on CNN and we saw Don Lemon talk about the fact that there were new, symptoms of the disease that hadn't been reported prior, which was that people were losing their sense of smell and taste. And Courtney and I kind of looked at each other and our jaws dropped and we went, oh my God, that's what's wrong with us. We've got COVID, because we didn't know what the hell was going on. Nobody had ever experienced anything like that before.
No, that's pretty crazy. Yeah, this is the first we're hearing of this.
Yeah, well, I did mention it on an Instagram post. I did, say we did have COVID. We both came back. We got the test. We have the antibodies now, which I guess puts us in a safe bracket. So we're both grateful to have the antibodies because at least, we feel a little bit safer. We still wear our masks everywhere. We still do the, the hygiene and all the typical stuff that's being required. But, we both have a bit of a feather in our cap knowing that we've already been through the worst of it.
Well, I'm really happy that you're safe and healthy now.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Horrible to hear. Now, for us here in Los Angeles, I have to say the last great time we had, and this is true, was at the Rainbow Room eating that delicious cheese pizza. That is the last thing I ate anywhere at a restaurant. Everything else has been home. So, thank you for giving that party.
Well, I'm glad that you got to have some fun at least. I mean, it wasn't the most fun night, I must say, I've ever had, but, at least it was hospitable.
Well, I wanted to talk to you about that. Now, I was there in the audience, and I think it didn't get more than 10 minutes into the movie, and the first thought in my brain was, what's going on here? Because you guys had to stop the movie, and you came on stage, and I know you've talked about this, and that it was a cyber attack, but I want you to take me through your thoughts at that moment when you had to stop the movie and you had like a full theater full of people and you had to say, listen, this is what's happening. Because I want to know what you were feeling, because it was like one of the craziest things I've ever seen.
Well, I'll take it even further. Not only was that party at the Rainbow probably the last party on the Sunset Strip until today, but it was also the last premiere in Hollywood. And I don't know how many people are aware of this, but I had always said that my movie was going to shut down Hollywood when it came out. And I guess I was right, even if it wasn't due to the movie itself, but it was the timing that was immaculate timing. I mean, you can't compare it, but literally we and Mulan ended up being both on Monday night, and Mulan was a last-minute entry, which wasn't even ready to come out, which was very odd that they even put it on that night because the movie didn't actually come out for another 3 months. But for some reason, they rushed it in and they put it up against our movie that night. But whatever. The point being, that premiere ended up being, until today, the last red carpet normal premiere in Hollywood. They've done a couple drive-in premieres, but that's about it.
Now, I want to... Over the
And
summer.
so I'll take you back. I'm sorry. I know I got sidetracked with that.
That's
So
okay.
I didn't want to miss or dodge your question. So I will be very direct about my feelings on the night. It was horrific, Paul. It was one of the most frightening and staggering moments of my life. Imagine, it's hard to encapsulate, but imagine being a survivor. Imagine going through the abuse of child abuse, being a slave, being tortured, being ridiculed, being bullied, and then being molested by adults, being fed drugs so that you could be molested, becoming a drug addict, having to fight your way through rehab, having to embrace your friends who you're watching suffer from all the pain and the agony that's going on around you, and then watching your best friend slowly demise through the years, and you do whatever you can to be mental, psychological, emotional support for your best friend, and then you watch him die before he even reaches 40 years old. Okay, so with all of that past building up to just finding the courage to go forward to make this film, it was such a build up to, can I even find the courage? Can I even find the courage to do this? And then every day on the set as we were shooting, every day, and I'm not lying to you, every day I woke up saying, I don't know that I want to do this. I don't know that I should do this. Is this right? Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the wrong thing? And I would have all the fans and supporters going, you're doing the right thing. Keep it up, Corey. You're doing the right thing. But there's so much of it that was like, I don't want to do the wrong thing. I don't want to hurt anybody. I just want people to know the truth. I want Corey's soul to be free. And I want, hopefully, investigations to be started so that these people can get the punishment they deserve. And they can be outed. And that's it. That's where it began. That's where it ended. And so I went forward every day begrudgingly and painstakingly to get through the process of making the film. And it was a 3-year process, start to finish. So by the time, and here's another thing, when it got to the point where it was supposed to come out, we didn't even know that it was going to come out, because at that point, what happened was right before the film got released, we were informed of this very large insurance bill that we were going to need to cover to be able to actually get the film out. Not even theaters, just to get it out on VOD, which was, to get it in theaters would have been a whole other level. But just to cover what we needed to cover was this, ridiculously large amount of money that I had no way of covering. And it was literally one of those things where it almost didn't happen. And at the last minute, a literal angel investor came out of nowhere through a friend of mine and said, look, I've heard about what you're doing. I want to help. I want to help you complete your goal and get this film out. And he gave me a loan that got me the insurance, that got me to be able to put up the billboard, that got me to be able to pay for that premiere. All of that came in at the very, very last second. So building up to all of that against all odds, I mean, literally, it was like, nobody can stop us if we release this movie ourselves. So it was my idea to create a platform for the world's first ever online streaming premiere of a film. It had never happened before that. Nobody had ever had that concept. So I said, look, if we build the website, if we make it direct access to the viewers, then nobody can stop this film from being seen. And that was the mentality that we went into it with. And when we hired the digital provider that put up the stream, they pretty much said, look, we've never had any problems. We've done events with everybody from the Dixie Chicks to Obama to Hillary Clinton to, you name it. We've done literally across the board huge events with pay-per-view and digital on-stream, which is the provider, and they never ever experienced any problems. So we had great faith that there wouldn't be any problems. And so the night of the premiere, leading up to it, I was thrilled. I was excited. I couldn't wait. And I had this sense of relief all the way up until that moment that once this film was over, there would be a new world. We would be living in a new reality. And that reality would be one of compassion, of empathy, and of support for my peers. And I truly believed Just like all the other times when you saw the Neverland movie come out, when you saw, you know, the R. Kelly movie come out. I believed that the media and the public at large and my industry would support me because we got a standing ovation that night. You saw it. You were there. The film ended with a standing ovation.
The film is great. I will attest to that. I'm the one that wrote the review, and I'll stand up for the review.
Thank you for the review, and I hope you don't mind that we added a few of your words to our trailers so that people can see what you wrote. But you know, we worked very hard. Brian Herzlinger, the director, did a phenomenal job encapsulating all of the information that had to be put forth and doing it tastefully, which is really hard to do when you're talking about such vile and sensitive subject matter. But that said, he did it delicately, he did it beautifully, and he did it responsibly. And we were just thrilled to have the opportunity for people to see it. And then what went through my mind when I heard that the film was not streaming, because that was the first thing that happened, was I was out in the lobby. I was literally coming down the ramp to introduce the film. And somebody said to me, whispered in my ear, the producer whispered in my ear and said, you know, the film's not streaming. They can't get it to start. And I said, what do you mean? He said, it looks like there's been an attack of some sort. We don't know. So can you please just stall everybody for 10 minutes? So when I went up on that stage to interrupt the film, I thought this was literally just going to be, well, first of all, I introduced the film with hesitation because I knew that there was already a problem. But I didn't want to alert the audience to the fact that there was a problem. So I just kind of went on with the introduction. I stalled as much as I could to make it look natural. And I said, we've had some technical issues, but we're hoping everything gets resolved and we're going to go ahead and start the movie. So we started the movie. And then I sat there with the rest of you, relaxed, enjoying it, thinking that the problem was probably resolved. And then I start getting these texts saying, the film's still not playing. This film's still not playing. This is really bad. What's going on? Apparently there's been some form of a terror attack or something like that. So I immediately jumped out of my seat, ran into the lobby, ran up to the projection room, asked what was going on. And that's when I told them they had to get on the phone with the on-stream company immediately and find out what they were saying. So by the time I made it back down to the stage and you saw what happened in real time, the booth, you know, the projection was on the phone and they said, look, this is absolutely an attack. It's absolutely an attack. We're pretty sure we have to, you know, of course, run all the tests and do the diagnostics. But from what we can see, we've been overwhelmed in the last 10 minutes with millions and millions of requests. Now, we had sold about 42,000 tickets to that point. That was in 7 weeks of ticket sales leading up to the movie or something like that, 6 weeks. So 40,000 over 6 weeks. But then in the last 5 minutes, millions of people all of a sudden decided they wanted to watch the movie. It just didn't make sense, right? So after a thorough investigation through the digital companies and through the security, the cybersecurity company that we hired afterwards, we did a full diagnostic report. And that full diagnostic report showed 100% that this was called a DDoS attack, which is a denial of service, which basically what that is a group of conspirators, hackers as we will call them, got together, made this plan, and sent out from various computer sources millions of requests at the same time, overloading the mainframe and causing the entire site to crash. They also simultaneously did the same thing to my website, CoreyFeldman.net, went down simultaneously. And on the third part of it, and this was the worst part, the third part of the assault was that in synchronicity with taking down our film, and nobody has reported this, by the way, Paul, nobody, even you guys haven't reported this, that after the film went down, somebody subsequently and simultaneously launched a brand new website called mytruths with an S doc.com. So it was off by one letter. And we were not made aware of that website's existence for 3 months after the fact. So from the night of the premiere all the way until I believe like the middle of April or May.
That's crazy.
These people got away with not only selling the movie, because they were actually selling the movie, they stole the script off of our actual web page. They reproduced it on their own web page, and they put up ticket sales that looked identical to our page. So people thought they were doing business with us. And they were actually charging people $10 more a ticket. So on that website, we don't know how much money was stolen from us at this point, but we know that they were hand over fist stealing our income for the money that should have gone back to the people who worked so hard on this film that deserve to be compensated, like the director, like the producer, the crew, the editor, the people who spent the real time and energy working on this day in and day out, who, unfortunately are not making anything extra. They're not getting paid their deferrals because there's no deferral money, because we haven't even sold 50,000 tickets yet. And what we need to break even really is probably about 70,000 tickets. If we sold about 70,000 tickets, we'd be at break even. So we're about 25,000 tickets away. And I'm hoping to God that with this re-release, with the subtitles and closed captioning, maybe we can reach a new audience. And what really would matter the most, honestly, is people getting out there and saying that the movie's streaming. Because if you notice what happened the night of the premiere, there was so much press leading up to this event, right? Every news channel was talking about it leading up to it. And then we got hacked, and then it was like dead silent the next day. Nobody ever reported that the movie came back up for streaming. Except you. You guys did. And you were the only ones. But I mean, People Magazine, Us Magazine might have done a little blurb. They did a little blurb. People did nothing. Entertainment Weekly did a little blurb, and that was it. Rolling Stone said nothing. CNN didn't even touch it. None of the mainstream news corporations touched it. We literally just got treated like the black sheep. Everybody ignored it. Everybody rushed over the fact that it was streaming. And guess what? It's been streaming solidly without any problems ever since. And it's live right now on video on demand at mytruthdoc.com, as it's always been. But the good news is we've made the enhancements and these improvements to hopefully open this up to a larger market, because we understand there's many Spanish-speaking people in America that still don't know how to speak English, that need to know how to protect their children. And a lot of those people might even be thinking about putting their kids into modeling, into acting, into dancing, into singing, into some level or some form of the entertainment business. And they need to be warned. And there's also a lot of people who are either, deaf or hard of hearing, that can't hear well enough to actually decipher or understand the actual, language that we're speaking. They can hear, tones, but they can't make out the words. So for those people, we've got the closed captioning as well, because we feel that it's very important, especially if you're handicapped, to understand that these people are out there and they're predators. Because obviously if you're handicapped, that's a disability that keeps you even less aware of what's going on. So I think it is very important that we get this out to as many new minds and eyes and ears as possible.
Now let's bring up, you talk about the wolf pack in the movie, and since the movie came out, I believe you think they're responsible for the attack at the premiere, but also over the summer, you were hit with kind of a controversy involving SAG. Am I wrong about that? And
You're not wrong about that. You're not wrong about that, and it's something I'm very, very upset about. And there's, I got to be careful when we get into the legal talk about what happened exactly. But what I will say is, okay, I don't believe the Wolfpack per se is who's necessarily directly responsible for the hacking of the film, even though they take credit for it. They also took credit for my stabbing. But I know it wasn't any of the people online that came and stabbed me. It was 3 Mexican guys that I'd never seen before. Okay. So obviously it wasn't the wolf pack that stabbed me. It was people that had been hired by their connections to people in the wolf pack. And just like the DDoS server attack, I don't believe it was one of these fans that, is a groupie that's been caught up in this drama, that's actually a well-versed and experienced hacker to the point that they could pull off a stunt like this. This is a multi-million-dollar operation. It's a multi-million-dollar disinformation campaign that has been run since I first announced the launch of this film. And it's gathered steam and it's gathered momentum in a very cultish sort of way. And this is now a very obvious cult group of terrorists who's been doing this. And I'm not exaggerating when I use words like that, but we do have an investigation going on. We will get to the bottom of it. And this won't be the last you hear about this, because we will not stop fighting for justice until we can not only prove what happened, because we can already prove that there was a DDoS attack, but we can't prove who actually triggered it or who was responsible or who actually stood to gain. Because the other thing you have to realize is, where we lost the most of our income was not even from that alternate website. They're selling DVDs that they've packaged. I mean, you can literally go online and find packaged DVDs that look professional, like they're from a studio. Okay. So somebody at some studio is behind that, because how else are they studio professional quality levels products that they're putting out?
Can I ask you about this? I'm talking about bootlegs. I noticed on YouTube, there's quite a few individuals who are showing the movie behind them and running commentary about the movie, and you can find those individuals. They're not hiding. What happens to those people who are stealing your content for that purpose, who are still able to run this movie on YouTube in that format because it's reviewed as, or it's seen as a review or a commentary? Because it seems like they're still stealing the movie, because you can watch it with their commentary.
Right, exactly. So it's a very gray area, isn't it? But basically, I hold YouTube accountable and I hold YouTube responsible for all of this damage. Because do you know how many views were given away for free on YouTube that YouTube allowed? And I'm not talking about where people are sitting in front of it talking. I'm talking about the pirates who stole the stream in the first place, making multiple copies of this film and then passing it around for free to the world. And all of that equates to 4 million streams. 4 million streams on YouTube. That's how many screenshots we have, viewers of. So in other words, like one screenshot shows 250,000. Another screenshot shows 1 million. Another screenshot shows 10,000, 20,000, 30,000. I mean, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these links that we've had to have taken down. And the thing is, when you notify YouTube and you tell them these are illegal streams, they shouldn't be allowed, YouTube should say, look, we see what's happening, and anytime somebody tries to put this up, we're going to flag it, and we're going to make sure that channel gets taken down, because we've already been made aware that this film has been assaulted and stolen. And it's our job to make sure that copyright infringement doesn't happen, especially the fact that they've been made aware of it from our attorneys repeatedly. We've sent them repeated notices, and they keep allowing people to put them up. How is this okay? I don't understand.
What is the aftermath of this movie now that people have seen it and they have seen the names and have seen your story? What has happened? Nothing.
Nothing at all. I would love to say that there's some great move for justice. I would love to say there's some great investigation. But unfortunately, as you brought up with SAG, I went to SAG. I begged Gabrielle Carteris to look into this situation. I showed her the movie. We showed everybody the movie. There's how many witnesses in the movie that Corey specifically told directly, this is what happened to me, right? That's the whole point. That's why we did what we did, to line them up and show. And guess what? There's a whole lot more than that. We couldn't fit them all into an 1.5-hour movie, but there is literally, there's probably 50 people that I know that he told this story to. Why? Because he was crying out for help, because he wanted help. And the fact that his mother would deny him that, deny him the voice, deny him the court or the concert to be able to use his voice and raise that, and have it investigated is inhumane to me. Okay, I don't understand how a mother could do that, but that's a whole other story.
Well, let me bring that up. I believe you've shown emails on Twitter that have Judy admitting what happened. Am I wrong about that? Haven't those?
I showed them in the movie. Showed them in the movie. Yeah.
I didn't remember them being in the movie. I thought they were on Twitter.
Oh yeah, we highlight very specific words, and I don't want to repeat those words because it's a whole legal mess if I do. But watch the movie, and the words are very specifically pointed out and highlighted, where she, says what she says.
Now, she claims she's not the head of the wolf pack.
of course.
What do you think about that now? Do you have an opinion on that? Is there any chance of reconciling with Judy Haim
No,
after this?
there's no chance. No. She's what she's done to me, persuading people to cause violence to my family. I mean, you have to understand, again, the amount of evidence that, or let's say information that we put into that film is a microcosm of all the stuff we have, all the screenshots of her communicating directly with these people, of her giving orders to these people, you know, saying, make this video, do this, do that. I mean, we know. We know.
I'm really asking questions that I've heard. I'm not trying to upset you or make you mad or be tasteless. That was
fine. Listen. Well,
it's not my.
I'm here. I'm here to clear anything up I can.
Okay. Well, that's what people want to know. And one of the things in the movie that I think is interesting, and I don't know if we should get into this, but like in terms of Dominic Baraja, your film doesn't really go into his death. And if you look on the internet, there's not much that says what happened to him.
No, there's not.
And then you have Cappy, who supposedly jumps off a bridge. And you've seen like the kid from Glee, who supposedly hung himself from a tree, involved with child pornography. I'm wondering, your movie doesn't really go into some of these mysterious disappearances and deaths. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about what you think happens there. So I've known you've been really worried for yourself leading up to the release of the movie and then after the movie. And looking at some of these cases, which there really isn't a lot of information, so it's pretty suspicious.
Yeah, it's also pretty suspicious that every single person that accuses Kevin Spacey ends up getting hit by a car.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a little suspicious too, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And a little suspicious that Jeffrey Epstein just magically disappeared out of his jail cell. And a little suspicious that Donald Trump doesn't know who the Proud Boys are. But, you know, hey, we've all got issues. We've all got issues. But the point is, it's all connected, man. What I've proven through my Twitter, if you look at my Twitter stream, I think it's pretty clear that I've made and drawn lines that draw connections, direct connections from my story to an open secret. Because I feel that an open secret was the first chapter of this story, really. Okay? They did a fabulous job and they were on point. And what happened? SAG shut them down. Let's be very clear. SAG shut them down. That's why that movie never saw the light of day. So what was the common denominator between the two films? SAG is mentioned in both. And SAG has a position of responsibility to protect their union members, which is why I got involved with SAG. When Gabrielle Carteris came to me and asked me to be part of the reconciliation of all of this abuse within our industry by joining a sexual harassment committee so that we could focus on changing laws and creating legislation to better protect our members. And specifically, it was created to protect the, you know, adult members who have been abused. But I came in and said, look, if I'm going to be involved, I want to protect the children. That's my focus. I have a movement that we created. It's called Kids 2. It's capital K with the number 2. And we actually literally trademarked that hashtag so we could use it on social media and people could recognize it, right, as a movement. And so we said, look, Kids 2 is our movement. We would like to initialize and create new legislation that will specifically protect the children within our union. Everybody on our staff inside the committee of sexual harassment committee, which is a myriad of people, a very diverse group, but most of them are survivors, mostly women, a few men. And I said, look, I want to start a subcommittee for Kids 2. How many people would like to join me? Show of hands. Literally like 7 people who are very, very well known and very powerful immediately raised their hands and said, I'd love to join. And so with that, we started subcommittee meetings. We started creating legislation. And that legislation was supposed to be presented in a town hall meeting that I was going to be speaking at, I believe it was in July, right before my birthday. And that was also coincidentally, right before the new SAG contracts with the Producers Guild were made. Okay? Now, we had a vote. Now, I said I need to make sure that people understand the legislation that I'm presenting, because it's not difficult. I'll lay it out for you real simply. There's 3 things that I requested. Number 1, that every person that is with a child on a set or in a workplace environment that is related to production on any level or in any form must have a background check. Now, that's not unrealistic. That is actually a California law. We pointed out in the movie, AB, I think it's 1550 or 1350 or 1150. But anyway, it's in the movie. It's very specific. And we tell people, look, the law says that if you're working as an employee in the state of California, every employer has a legal promise and a debt to make sure that they do background checks for sexual abuse or any type of child abuse in their history. That is the law, and that's what we're supposed to be doing. It's not being done. It's not being respected by our studios. It's not being respected by our guilds or our unions, okay? So that was a law that I tried to initiate. Number 2, the other law was that I said there should never be a time that a child is on set without a guardian that is their physical legal guardian. I'm not talking about a signed on set sitter. I'm not talking about a tutor. I'm not talking about a second cousin or a friend. I'm talking about a legal parental guardian. And I don't just mean on sets. I mean anywhere a child goes, because as people don't really seem to care about or understand, most of these rapes and assaults don't happen on sets. It's very rare that it would actually happen on set. I think Corey's case is very unique. I don't think it's standard, okay? I think it's very unique. But where they usually do happen is with the managers, the publicists, the agents, the business managers, the assistants, all these people that are the hanger-ons in the little groups around the celebrity, around the child star. Those groups are usually people within those groups that are the pedophiles, that are placed in their lives purposely, just like they were in mine, just like they were in Corey's. I've said it many times. Corey and I were surrounded by a nest of pedophiles. It wasn't just 2 or 3. There was at least 7 or 8 pedophiles around us at all times. Every event we went to, every party we went to, every group we hung out with, these pedophiles were part of those groups. And they were accepted as one of the guys. Why? Because we brought them in. I brought Dominic over to lots of kids' houses because he was my pal, right? I didn't know that he was a child molester. I was a 15, 16-year-old kid, and this guy made me believe he was my friend. So did John Grissom. So did Alfie. That's how they work. So did Marty Weiss. That's how they work. And by the way, did you know that Marty Weiss happens to be related to the head of William Morris, the former creator of William Morris? Did you know that? Did you know that his last name was Weiss? Isn't that interesting? That. Yeah, pretty interesting. So anyway, what I'm saying is that it's all connected, Paul.
We're back.
And we're back. We're back if you're into classical music.
I want to ask you about your music when we get a chance, but I want to go back
let's get to that.
Huh?
Let me try and fit this in real quick, because I really want to finish that train of thought, because it's such an important piece of this puzzle about the SAG situation. So as I had said, they were getting ready to put forth the contracts and put forth a vote, which, by the way, only 28% of our voting committee actually voted on this vote, because it was shoved through at the last minute without people even aware that the vote was coming down or happening that day. So I was supposed to do a town hall to present my platform and explain to people why it was so important that we put these additional measures in to protect children, as I was explaining to you before. Very simple measures, nothing complicated, and not even controversial, really. Just basic stuff that any well-respected organization should be abiding by if you're going to be employing children. The third one that I never got to had to do with when children can retire, because I don't really think it's fair that a person such as myself or many others like me, that start their careers at 3 years old, that continue working their entire lives, should have to wait till 65 to get their retirement. Most people in the world start the business life at 20 years old. They go to high school, they go to college, and somewhere between 20 and 25, they start their professional careers. Then it's expected that they're going to work for 25 to 35 years and they can retire. Why should it be any different for children in the industry? Because they're slaves. They're being used as slaves. They're being made to work for an extra 25 to 35 years in the workforce, opposed to any other normal human being. How is that legal and how is that justified? It doesn't make sense. So anyway, those were the three things that I was trying to enter into our psyche just by, simply putting them out there for people to be able to understand what I was asking for and to weigh out the option of including it into those contracts. And instead of my voice being able to be heard and being able to present those ideals, what happened was Gabby took a call from a member of the Wolfpack who is a self-proclaimed Satanist and a stripper. And this is a person that is not a union member. I don't judge people because of what they do, but you're not a union member. You're not somebody that has anything to do with our industry. And this woman took your call. She didn't call me. She didn't say, Corey, you're my union member. I've gotten some worrying news that I need to talk to you about and find out what's going on. She never made that call to me. We never even had a discussion, but instead she went public and went ahead and presumed that these ridiculous things that were being made up were true. First of all, there was no investigation. So let's start there. Her reason for denying me the town hall and asking me to remove myself from the board of the sexual harassment committee was all based on some idea that there was an ongoing police investigation that, she needed to be sensitive to, which was a lie. There was an investigation 2 years ago that came up with nothing because it was based on baseless lies. And there was nothing there. It was all because the girl, who, as I repeat, is a stripper and an admitted Satanist, claimed that I grabbed her butt. That was the entire claim. They investigated it, and it was found to be baseless, and it was dropped. And there was statements made by both the district attorney's office and the Los Angeles Police Department over 2 years ago, clearing me of those charges. Yet, Gabrielle Carteris gave credence to a non-union member instead of listening to a union member who's begging her to investigate another union member who raped another union member. And it was a child. So do you understand the injustice that I'm dealing with here? Why would you disregard everything that I'm fighting for? I showed you a movie full of documentation, full of eyewitness accounts, full of evidence. You don't want to even take the time to watch that film, but instead you're going to go out there and gaslight me so that you can push through some contract and not even consider the proper litigation that should be added to protect children. That's where I have an issue.
This is all very crazy, and this all happens after the movie comes out. And there's so much more information here. I know this was like a 10-year ordeal for you to get this done, if not longer, this movie itself.
Yeah.
Are you going to move forward with some more of this information and maybe do a second one of these?
Oh, God, I don't think I can take it. I don't think I can take it. I don't think that I have any intent to do another movie at this point about this situation. Do we have a lot of leftover footage? Yes, we do. Do we have a lot of probably very incriminating information about these particular people and eyewitness accounts that go well beyond the topics that we discussed in the film? Yes, we do. But does that mean that we want to put it on public display? No, because it just puts my life and safety at more risk. As you know, I have mostly this year been living out of the country. As I said, mostly it was because we were forced because of the closed borders. But then I returned and left again. Why? Because I don't feel safe. And why don't I feel safe? Well, because these people, these same stalkers that called SAG, the same people that invaded my home as spies, planted cameras in my home. We learned this, by the way, through discovery, through witness accounts. They've been placing cameras in my home, spying on me, doing all sorts of nefarious things. actually broke into my car and stole everything out of it while I was gone. They know where I live because this girl who was our bass player lived with us for over a year. So they know where I live. They can come over at any time. Do I ever feel safe at home? No, I don't. Does my wife or my child feel safe at home? No, they don't. So until I can afford to buy a house or move into a rented house or something to get ourselves safe, I have to stay out of Dodge.
Now,
And that's not a very safe place to feel. You know?
We brought up Dominic Braja in his passing. And for you, you have the movie.
I would love that to be investigated. I would love that to be investigated.
My point I'm going to bring up here is that, and this is like, I don't want to get you worried or anything. I've done a lot of research and looked into a lot of this stuff before even seeing the movie.
Are you trying to tell me something I don't know, Paul?
Well, first of all, I do know because I've had contact with you and we've run stories for this. There have been people that have reached out and said things and tried to get on their side, which we haven't ever published any of that stuff. But if you look at the timelines of this stuff, this is where I just personally, I love you as a person, as a fan. You're one of my favorites. You got to look at the timeline of some of this stuff. Dominic Braja disappeared out of the news for, I think, almost a year before his sudden passing.
That's right.
Anything that happens to you isn't going to happen, or anything that happens to some of these people isn't going to happen right away.
Right.
So if you look at the timelines of this thing, it's like a projected thing. So just for you, you got to be like, you can't just like rest now and then say, oh, we're in the clear, because that's when something hits you from left.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So what does that mean? That means lots of sleepless nights. That means lots of money spent on armed security that I can't afford because all of my profits were stolen and we haven't even broken even. And I, as you may remember, literally did a crappy reality show, which I'm now in a lawsuit over.
And you said
so that I could obtain. Yeah, exactly. And I broke my own promise to myself, and I subjected myself to that crap, all so that I could get the budget together to make this film because it was that important. Okay, so I did it. I put every dollar I made from that thing right into the movie, right into my security, and right into my legal, exactly where it needed to be. No. And as a result, I expected that when the movie came out, I would be rewarded by getting my money back. At the very least, I didn't want to get rich. And I've said all along, if I made over the profit point, I would have gladly donated it to a zillion charities. But if you look at the amount of money that we would have earned had every view been a paid view, we know there's 4 million so far. If you put up at $20 a piece, that's $80 million stolen from us. Now, do you know how many lives could have been saved? Do you know how many homeless and battered children and abused children, houses and you know, safe places that we could have built, hospitals we could have built? I mean, we could have done so much with that amount of money. And instead, where is it? Where is that money? It's sitting in the pockets of the very people that are benefiting from keeping me silent. Why is nobody investigating this stuff? I mean, I know millions of people have watched the film, even if they watched it for free. So does that mean nobody really gives a crap enough to actually start an investigation? Is that what we're saying? Is nobody cares, really? I mean, we're talking about children here, you know, and we're talking about lots of children that are being assaulted on a daily basis, and it's being ignored.
Well, what do you think?
What do I have to do to urge people to take this seriously?
That's what I was going to say is what has to happen next.
Well, what has to happen next is I believe there needs to be a vote of no confidence in SAG's president. And I believe that somebody needs to get in there that actually gives a crap about their union members, is going to go in there and do a full investigation of all of these accounts and find out exactly what's going on and who the bad seeds are so we can root them out of our business. There's a lot of good people in our business. There's people that I'm still lifelong friends with. You know how close I am with the Goonies cast. You know how close I am with Donner and Spielberg and Joe Dante, you know, Joel Schumacher until he died. I mean, you know, these people have been lifelong friends of mine. None of them ever abused me. None of them ever abused any other kids that I'm aware of. but you see these fake lists that are going out there. I'll tell you what a real problem is. A real problem is QAnon. QAnon is going out there smearing these lies, this misinformation, saying Tom Hanks is a pedophile and this person's a pedophile and that person. Where are you getting this information? What they're doing is they're taking the Jeffrey Epstein flight log, they're throwing it away, and they're making up their own created Jeffrey Epstein flight log with all these celebrity names. And by the way, every single name on that list happens to be either a Democrat or somebody who's been vocally against Trump. Did you notice that?
Mm-hmm.
Every person on that list. But surprisingly, as opposed to the real Epstein flight logs, Trump's name isn't on that list, and neither is Alan Dershowitz. And we know that they're both really on the flight logs. So you tell me who's, blowing smoke screens here.
I don't know. You seem to know a lot about this stuff. That's why we want to hear from you. And I'm not trying to.
Well, I'll tell you why I know a lot about it, because I spend almost every day on the phone with law professors and people that are fighting for children's rights. That's what I spend a lot of my time doing. So yes, I get very involved in the details and trying to find out where the truth really lies. And one thing I can tell you for sure, there is not one political party that is free and clear of charges. Okay? I can tell you that real fast. The right side has bad apples. The left side has bad apples too. They also have good people on both sides. So let's stop making it a dividing union of parties, and let's talk about the fact that it's the same as it's always been. There is large power and large corruption covering up for that power and for that money and for that greed. And there is a big business that's built on sexual child predators. There is big, giant, billion-dollar industries that benefit off sex trafficking. And we know for a fact that the Catholic Church spends $800 million a year on sex insurance. Did you know that?
Had no idea.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
That's why I'm saying
$800 million a year on sex abuse insurance. So that means they are actually giving a green light to the priests to go ahead and keep abusing kids because we're going to protect you if you do. Do you get how sick that is?
No, I do.
What do you think happens? So what do you think happens in our own industry with these medical exams and the insurance doctors and the insurance carriers? Every single celebrity or actor or musician or whatever has to get insurance to be able to perform. So you don't think that there's some kind of sex insurance there too? You don't think people are benefiting from this? Because I guarantee you they are.
Yeah, that's, again, I was going to say that's why I know you're probably not interested in that, but more information somehow in a video, another movie. There's a lot of information here that people need to know.
I have a lot of information in my head, and a lot of that information can have me dead. And that's why it's probably best I keep my mouth shut from this point forward. But listen, I did what I promised I was going to do. I told the truth. I gave my story. And if investigations are opened, I will thoroughly comply. And I will do whatever is possible. I will continue to work with Child USA, pushing for, the laws to change, pushing for SOL reform, to push back on the limitations so that people can have the opportunity to go forward and speak their truth and to speak their stories. I will do whatever I can to help progress in that regard. And obviously this wealth of information that I've been given due to my daily work, at some point, yes, something should be done with it. Whether that is write another book, whether that is make another documentary, or maybe it's just tell my friends that are in, positions in the Senate to be able to actually move legislation forward. Whatever I've got to do, I want to try and do it very quietly, very silently, and stay as much under the radar as possible, because let's face it, I'm an entertainer. I'm not an investigator. I'm not a detective, and I'm not a politician. I'm not on one side or the other. I'm in the middle of the road. What I want to see is peace and love for everybody. I want everybody to get over this glossy haze that we're all in, believing all this, nonsense from this QAnon, which is nothing more than a conspiracy, propaganda, misinformation route. All it is. That's what they do. They have a funneled system of routing misinformation to the general public. And it's confusing people so much that they're going out there and assuming that every Democrat is part of the elite pedophile ring, and they're all part of this satanic thing, and they're drinking kids' bloods and all this. I mean, come on. It's out of control. You have to know that if there's people that are Democrats in the political field that are actually doing this stuff, there's Republicans doing it too. Sorry, but what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So you have to understand that when you're talking about billion-dollar corporations, there's people on all sides that are benefiting from those. All sides.
Now, can we go to a little something a little bit more light?
Okay.
Well, you just, when you were talking about, well, I mean, this is pretty heavy stuff.
Yeah.
So
very heavy stuff.
But
very
you're talking about stuff. The reality shows, and you're never doing another one, and then you did one. But now, I believe last night, everybody believes you're on Masked Singer. That's never going to happen, right?
Not as far as I know, unless they've got some secret plan that they're not telling me about, and they're going to make me some ridiculous offer that could solve all of my problems and make all of my worries go away.
Well, they got to get you out of the submarine too, there, to get you in this.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought it was weird that
I've also got to get out of that. I got to escape the swingers resort first.
Yeah, Jesus. Exactly.
Swingers resort, and then the submarine, and then hopefully I'll make it back to planet Earth eventually.
Well, I was thinking that's not a bad place to be, so I didn't think it was scandalous at all. I just thought that was weird that was a narrative that these people were trying to push. I'm not trying to hurt your feelings with that or bring it up again.
The whole idea was to basically make it look like I didn't care, to make it look like I wasn't taking this seriously, and that it was all a big money grab, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, such a big money grab that I invested my whole life and put my whole life at risk to make this truth be heard, So if I've got all this money, please show me the account that it's sitting in. Where are my millions of dollars that were stolen from me? Show me. Because if I had them, I'd have a lot better protection. Trust me on that. Nobody would be getting to me. I'd be at a house in Belize, or I'd be, off in some grand palace with armed security 24/7, and I wouldn't have to do these interviews.
And you've said it a million times, you will never commit suicide. So if something actually terribly happened to you, you can bet it's not you.
I have a very happy life with my wife and my child. So, the best times that I've had, to be honest with you, were over the last 4 months when I've been staying out of the mainstream society. I've been laying low, and I've actually been enjoying time with my family, and it's been magical, let me tell you.
Well, and I saw...
It's been very, very exciting for my soul.
I think I saw on your Instagram that you are working on music right now. You're remastering some of the old tapes, and you have new music coming up.
It's a very exciting project. I'm really excited about it, and especially for movie fans, because it really taps into my entire kind of lore of my films, I guess, post, the 80s films, but like all the late 80s, early 90s stuff kind of all wrapped together. It really goes back and reinvestigates those films through the music, interestingly enough. So it's a really fun box set. It's a box set that's going to be comprised, I believe, and don't mark my words on this yet because it's not packaged, but I believe it's going to end up being about 5 discs. That's what we're looking at. 3 audio, 2 DVD. We're going to have a behind-the-scenes making-of documentary about the process of making the original album and then remastering, remixing the original album off of tapes, which were actually those old 3-inch Ampex tapes, or actually I think they're 2-inch, but 2-inch tapes from the past. In the 80s, we all had these giant reel-to-reel 24-track machines that we worked on. So we actually took those old tapes, and through a very meticulous scientific process, they were able to go through inch by inch and clean up those tapes using special techniques. And then they had to bake them in an oven to where I guess all the metallic stuff falls off, and then they kind of reconfigure it one time. So you can get it, like if you bake it in an oven, what happens is all the magnets that have fallen off, they kind of fray and they kind of pile up around the outside of the tape. So when you put them in the oven, they jump back into place, and you can play the tape again one time. So you have one shot at digitally transferring the music from the tape into digital format. So we were able to do this because of an old 80s rocker guy that I happen to be friends with named Don Dokken, who is a legend in his own right.
Mm-hmm.
And Dokken and I became friends, and he offered this service to me. He said, I do this for my own stuff. I'd love to help you out. And he's the reason why we were able to basically preserve, and rescue all of this old data and make it contemporary. So what we're doing is we don't have every song, but we have, I think, like 70 or 80% of the album, and we're restoring those. We're bringing the tracks back up. We're remixing them as if it's the first time. And I got to tell you, it sounds incredible. And the great news is that the music that was on that first album, which is Love Left, it's the 25th anniversary of my first album, which was called Love Left. And that album originally had music on it from Dream a Little Dream 2. So it featured a couple songs from Dream a Little Dream 2, the title track, which was called Perfect Woman, and then a song called Feeling Funky. So we have those songs remixed and remastered, but we're also, with the first single we put out, which was kind of a preview of what's to come from the album, I did a remake of the title track of the first Dream a Little Dream with Mickey Thomas, which we did as a 30-year anniversary. So we did that, we put it out as a single, and on the B side of the single was supposed to be my first ever single, which was from the original Dream a Little Dream, which was called Something in Your Eyes, which I co-wrote and co-produced with Michael Damian for the original film soundtrack. So that song has been refurbished and remastered, and that's going to be also on the album. But on top of all that, there's a lot of music that I did between 1987 and 1993 when the album eventually was finished. We finally released it. Well, I got the album in my hand in 94. We physically started giving it out in 95, but it really didn't make it onto the market at all until 96. So that was really the way it went down. So everything that was kind of in the vaults between 87 and 94, we were able to go back in and find lots of lost tapes. So there's a lot of material that's never been released to the public. And then there's material that ended up in different films, but you've never heard the whole song. So there's a movie Corey and I did called National Lampoon's Last Resort. A lot of people don't know, but I had 2 songs in that movie, but you only hear like 30-second snippets of those songs. So now we're going to add those songs into this original format. There's a movie that I did called Rock and Roll High School Forever.
Love that
I supplied many of the songs for that movie. There was supposed to be a soundtrack album. It never came out. So now we're going to release the original version of some of those songs, and you're going to be able to listen to them and buy them and own them for the first time. So it's a lot of really exciting stuff for fans of the old days, for the fans of the history of it all, fans of the 2 Corey's movies, fans of my old movies. I think there's probably going to be 4 or 5 different films represented within this package. And then on top of it, there's a plethora of new music that we've recorded that's almost at this point a full new album of new music. So there's a lot of exciting stuff. On top of that, we're going to be including clips from very, very old TV performances. We're reaching out right now to try to get rights to be able to use some of this stuff, like my performance of the very first Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards. A lot of people don't realize this, but the song from Dream a Little Dream I did with Michael Damian, Something in Your Eyes, I performed for the first time at the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards' very first award ceremony. So we're trying to get that footage to include in the DVDs. We've got stuff like, my performance on the Improv Live, or my performance from Much Music in Canada. I did a song called Honesty, which was supposed to be a single on Love Left, and we never got it on the album for some reason. We're going to release that song and that video for the first time. So it's a lot. It's a lot of stuff. We're deep in the process. It's going to be a very exciting box set. We're making a limited edition of them. And my hope and my goal is to have all of this up by Christmas.
And when the box set you're talking, it's going to be vinyl or CDs?
Not vinyl. Yeah, CDs.
CD.
We can't afford vinyl.
Yeah.
Too expensive for my label.
Finally
but
got
maybe one day.
I got the vinyl that you put out from the record. I forget what it was. You put out one vinyl that I managed to get my hands on.
Go For It? Was it Go For It?
Yeah, Go For It. With Snoop Dogg, I think, is on the other side of it.
Yeah, no. It's me and Snoop Dogg on Go For It. And
Okay.
then the flip side is Everybody with a guy named Doc Ice.
That was hard to get.
And he's the one that came on the Today Show with us, actually.
Yes. That like sold out.
Yeah.
I went to like the couple of record stores here, couldn't find it anywhere.
Oh, that's awesome.
My hands on it.
Yeah, it came out for Record Store Day, and we sold 2,500 within like 5 hours. But here's what happened. I got actually screwed on my last single. Funny you brought it up. By the same company that put that out. So the company that put that out was called Jet Plastic Records. And we made a deal with them to put out my next single, which was the remake of Dream a Little Dream with Mickey. And on the backside was Something in Your Eyes. Excuse me. And we went ahead and we put that out. And apparently they took pre-orders. They took everybody's money. And nobody got their records, including me. I never got my records. They owe me, I think, 50 records that they promised me in a contract. Never sent one of them. And never sent me any profits from it. And these people are out there ripping off my fans. So, you know, the world is a sick place right now, man. It's very unfortunate, but I will guarantee everybody this. I will never make that deal again. And any record that comes out from this point forward will come directly from my label, Sci-Fi Records. And that's why we're not doing any vinyls at this time.
Well, do you think there was something nefarious going on behind the scenes with that record? Because again, I've heard something that
I don't want to make claims that are going to end up in some court battle. All I want to say is that people sent in their money, they never got their product, and that's not good business. I'm not okay with it, and it needs to be researched. Okay, that company, whether they did it intentionally or, you know, look, they've sent us all many emails apologizing, saying, don't worry, your record's on the way. We had problems with the plant. We had problems with the shipping. We had problems with the delivery. It's been almost a year. And people are now buying these singles on eBay, which means they made a deal and they sold it internationally.
That's crazy.
And they never even gave copies to the people who paid for the upfront pre-ordered purchases. So it's really wrong. But anyway, listen, man, I'd love to talk more. I think you're amazing. I appreciate you for all the support and everything you've done through the years. I can't thank you enough. You're a good man. And I'm sorry that I can't talk longer, but I do have other interviews today.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Again, my intention was not to upset you with any of the questions. I just have stuff that fans are asking about, stuff that Judy Haim has brought up. So.
Yeah. Well, look, it's important stuff. And again, I always welcome a full investigation into my claims.
That's why I ask you, is because I know you tell the truth. So we go straight to you to get the truth when we hear.
And you will never hear a lie out of my mouth, sir. I will never give you misinformation, and I will never tell you a lie. And I will never tell a lie to anybody who asks, because I think the truth is all we have. We must stand by it.
You know what? I just gave you an okay sign, like Eddie Murphy, and I realized that that nowadays. I didn't mean anything by that. I was like,
no. Was that Illuminati? Was that Illuminati? What are you trying to say, man?
It was this.
Yeah, exactly.
It was this.
Peace is always good, right? Peace is always good. Peace is always good.
Anyways, if there's ever a chance to talk again about some of these other movie questions I had, I'll reach out, because there's some stuff
I would love it.
have to ask.
We should always have an ongoing conversation and communication. You're a great guy, and I appreciate you.
All right. Well, thank you so much again. And
Thanks,
we'll get this up soon, and people will get the word out. We now have closed captioning and
Spanish subtitles. So hopefully we can make a whole new audience aware of how to best protect their children and be safe in this industry, because that's what's most important.
Excellent. So peace out. We'll see you.
Peace out. God bless, man.
Bye.
Stay safe out there.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Bye.